Seeing that it's come to 3 p.m., I'd like to welcome everybody to the November 7th meeting of the Citizens Remuneration Committee, Remuneration Review Committee. Clerk, has the roll call been taken?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Seeing none. We have no delegations or presentations on today's agenda. So we'll move to items of consideration. May I get a mover and a seconder to place item 4.1 on the floor?
Mover or seconder.
Well, you're to Brenda and Mohammed as the seconder. Thank you. All right. So so 4.1 is on the floor. Guess we'll go to a discussion.
We have Anita just run through it briefly. I had a couple questions, but sure.
All right, through you, Chair Prang.
Yes, please.
This report was put together following our last meeting. I had thought at the last meeting that that the committee had agreed on some thoughts and comments, recommendations from that particular report. Those would include that the factor for the new term of council, the remuneration for city councillors, would be set at step 3 of level D in the exempt wage grid, and that it would be based on 25 hours per week. That effective for the new term of council, the remuneration for the mayor would remain under the current provisions, and that staff be directed to include the following other compensation suggestions for consideration for the next term of council. And then there were 4 recommendations that came out of the survey. Hire dedicated staff support persons to help members of city council manage their schedules, answer emails, return phone calls, handle social media, assist with newsletter preparation, etc. A request to implement customer relationship management software to track constituent inquiries. Number 3, increase orientation to greater than 1 day for new councillors to grasp the full scope of city departments and activities. And the 4th recommendation was to create ongoing professional development opportunities for members of city council, especially in the first year. As part of the wage adjustment, the recommendation would be that staff be directed to amend the honorarium bylaw to implement any wage rate changes to coincide with the effective date of the exempt wage grid, which is usually on January 1st annually. The report provides the mandate of the Citizen Remuneration Review Committee, as well as an outline of the report dates. This would be our 4th meeting, and the report also provides a number of a number of attachments that had been provided in previous reports. One of the last discussion items of the committee at our last meeting was to do with the mayor's remuneration, because we hadn't really talked about it at all. So this particular report lists the comparative municipalities with the mayor's salary, provides the average and a median. We did run that particular position through the city's exempt wage grid or job evaluation grid, and the outcome would not have it anywhere close to what is currently paid at. As part of that review, another council remuneration option is provided in the report, and that would be to pay the mayor and the councillors at the average of the municipal comparator wage grid. So that information is contained in the report. And then there is 2 differentials for the financial impact. One, if the committee proceeded with the recommendations from the last meeting, that total salary and benefits cost would be $83,200. If we went with the average of the wage grids or the comparator municipalities, the total cost would be just over $104,000. That pretty much covers it.
Thank you, Anita. What questions do we have? Virginia.
The recommendation that says state step whatever of, as a taxpayer, I'm putting that hat on. I'd like to see a number in there. I know it's based on a 2024, but is there no way that we can say what it will be if it was implemented now and adjust? Because that means nothing to see that.
So through the chair, we can certainly provide that number. If you can give me a few minutes, I can look that up right now, so you would know what that is.
It's not really overly clear within the report, but I kind of know what it is. It's that 6,000 figure, I think is what it is.
Yes,
But I'd like to see it within the report, so it's right out there.
Okay.
For counselors, knowing that they usually just read the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people who are looking at the agendas.
okay, yeah, so the change in the pay rate for counselors would take it to $42,520 from the current $36,085 and $2023 that the counselors were paying, earning, and now they are currently being paid $36,717.
So if we can somehow incorporate the dollar figure within the recommendation.
So like specifically in B.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
To most people,
Here.
step B of that
Yeah,
contract would mean nothing.
Okay, so in 4 points, so the request seems to be possible, is that in 4.1B that we set a step level 3.0 of level D, the exempt wage grid. Moving that, meaning that year one of the next term of counselors will be paid 42,700.
so through the chair, that $42,523 would be the 2024 salary.
Okay,
We haven't negotiated yet with the Association of Professional Administrative Employees, APAE, and so we don't know what the percentage will be for 2025 and 2026.
okay,
So even if you can put currently at whatever level.
Yep.
In 2023 or whatever it is. Yeah,
fair enough, okay. So we're not gonna be able to, prior to the collective agreements being associated, we have a general idea of what the number is going to look like for January 1st, 2027. Yes, 25. Yeah, municipal elections in 26. So this won't kick in until January 1st, 2027. Okay, well, a general ballpark. Okay.
is
Virginia,
it possible to say January 1st, 2027?
to be even more clear,
New term of council, January 1st.
Yeah.
2027. Or whenever I don't know. I'm just trying to look at it, be really,
it's the lowest
Simple.
common denominator of people that would be acquiring this report, yeah.
yeah. I'll say what I was thinking. I want everyone to argue on Facebook about the same thing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Good
I
luck
know
with
I'm
that.
nitpicking,
So like world peace,
but-
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people might not know when that new term is. To just look at it,
Yeah.
and it's not really specified within the report. I'm not trying to be difficult, even though sometimes I do appear that way.
Right, well, the more problems we solve at this table, the less
Well,
problems
that's-
we have at the council table.
So I thought,
Additional questions on the report? Brenda,
Through the chair, this may be a stupid question and
there are
maybe
no
I'm,
questions.
okay, maybe I'm not reading it right, but the charts that I'm looking at, why does it say current 2024 salary and then it says proposed salary for 2023?
found that a little
Like, are they-
confusing too.
Yeah, maybe I'm just not used to reading this, but I'm just curious as to why. I didn't know if it was a typo.
Gotcha. Well, yeah.
And so through the.
Yes, please.
Brenda. The wage analysis was done based on the 2023 market information that we had. So when we take a look at the 2023 salary and we add the 2% to it, that's where we get the 43.73. But their current salary is 36,717. So if we carry that forward. Let me start again. So their current salary is 36,717. The proposed salary in 2023, based on the comparators, would be the 42,523. And then we have to carry that forward to 2024 based on the 2% that was negotiated. And so that would take that salary to 43,373.
Okay.
And so the differential is in the current salary, that first column, and the adjusted salary for 2020.
Okay. Okay.
Is that clear as mud? Okay. Mohammed,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say first off, the report was pretty transparent, and I appreciate the ease of use. Thinking, as Virginia had mentioned earlier, that we want people to have a discussion about this. We want them to have a discussion about the actual substance, not, you know, incorrect assumptions, if you want to call it that. To that end, I agree that we should make it explicitly clear that these salary revisions are being proposed to be effective at the next council, like kind of almost bold and italicize it so that so that citizens who may not be very well informed think that the councillors will be voting on their current compensation, which would be a huge conflict of interest. I wanted to bring to the committee's attention, or perhaps an item for discussion, regarding the mayor's compensation. This was something I apologize and for not being able to come at the last meeting. There was a huge conflict at work, and I was pulled away last minute. But about the mayor's compensation, with I guess the base plan of keeping the mayor's compensation frozen for the next 3 years. Is that correct? Can I have the mayor's salary? And then we had a second scenario where the mayor's salary would increase based on the average of the unrepresented employees. I putting my HR and executive management hat on, I believe that the second option is a better option. Freezing somebody's salary, whether implicitly or explicitly, demotivates people. And I would argue that, especially considering the specific mayor that we have right now, but again, this won't apply. This may not apply in the future. We want to. I don't believe it would be particularly fair for an employee of the city or of council to have their wages frozen, and then essentially have their purchasing power decrease. So I think that to that end, I think that the committee should adopt a recommendation for the second scenario of just tracking where the employee's increase in compensation is going, not exceeding it, but also not falling behind.
Anita.
For you, Chair, to Mohammed, thank you so much for your comments. I just wanted to clarify that the mayor is eligible for the negotiated adjustments as part of the exempt group. And so the salary is not frozen per se. There is an annual adjustment that occurs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does your chart need to be adjusted then to show that? Because it's showing stagnant for the next few times.
So through the chair, the recommendation had been to leave the salary as is, plus the economic adjustments. I can certainly make that clear in the recommendations if that would help.
I think clarity is the
Yeah,
argument that
Mm-hmm.
it's got good technical staff clarity, but not to the layperson who may read it. Yes. Okay. Any additional questions, Virginia?
yes. Just as a reminder, is their salary taxable now? Their full salary? Was that?
The one, it is fully taxable now.
They don't get that 1/3?
There used to be a 1/3 tax-free provision,
Mhm.
and that was removed a few years ago. Their
Okay.
salary was increased to reflect the additional tax that was going to be paid on that. So it resulted in essentially the same net amount.
Couple more comments.
Yes, please.
I know that council is very in tune with public consultation on everything that they do now. I guess that would be up to their purview if they decide to go out and do public consultation after we submit our report to them.
I would editorialize that this is the public consultation. The public had the opportunity to join this committee and they.
Well, that could be said for everything.
Yes.
Yes. Mhm. We'll agree to disagree on that one. I had one more thing.
Yeah, yes.
Planning committee honorariums. That's an honorarium, a remuneration that they get. And we had talked about it. I know I had talked about it a few times and we never did go back to it. Was that up for discussion or not? I guess is what I'm trying to, because I did some quick calculations that assuming that 3 out of the 5 counselors have taken that over the last 2 years, we paid about $4,700 every year that we're paying extra, whoever decides to take it. I've also looked at their average meetings are 1 hour and 45 minutes, which puts them at $125 an hour to attend these planning meetings. It's just like, to me, that I consider that bonusing almost, that perhaps they need to be compensated at the rate that we're setting them at. Level D of step 3 of the, I don't know, I'm just putting that idea out there because that's.
The idea, but that,
Yeah.
my interpretation of that would be a change in the final recommendation.
Mhm.
So we could. Another question poses, I think. I have a question, I guess, through the chair. Those counselors and the mayor that sit on, say, Grand Bridge, which has a fairly.
Yeah.
So right now, my understanding is they at Grand Bridge, I think the Great Over Conservation Authority as well. Do they have, if they're compensated for those counselors and the mayor who sit on external committees that are eligible for compensation? Is it a council practice that they contribute that back to the general coffers, or how does that?
Yes, Chair Friend, that's correct. So there is a provision in the remuneration bylaw that requires any stipend or honorarium they get from sitting on a board, such as the ones that you've mentioned, that those come directly to the city.
Okay, so that's a decision that previous councils have made within their bylaw, that if they wanted to change that, that would be we could recommend that, or it could be recommended by some other body or by one of them to make that change, but I think that's outside of the purview in terms of this committee. It sounds. So Virginia, you had an idea.
Well,
action that idea.
I'm just thinking that if a counselor accepts that additional remuneration, they would make the 36,000 or whatever, plus another potentially 5,000. I know the idea behind it. It was, for people that are working full time and they have to take a day off work or whatever, and I understand that part of it. But I just have a problem with the largeness of the stipend that they're getting.
Well, I think I would suggest that both my question and this topic are outside of the mandate of this committee.
And I would challenge that because it's remuneration that we're looking at, and that's part of a remuneration to Just saying, putting it out there, because if 3 of them took it over 2 years, that's an additional $15,000.
For work that's
Potentially.
being completed on behalf of the city.
Yes, that they're being paid through their honorarium.
Sure.
Arm wrestle later.
Okay,
I'm just putting it out there. I have a problem as a taxpayer, which is how I'm sitting on this board now,
yes,
that they're getting an extra. I don't even want to call it a perk, but they're getting an extra stipend. But as long-
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
yes, sorry.
About
Wait, just
this-
a second, Mohammed. So are we letting
Oh, we're
that?
cool. I'm
Okay.
just putting my
Okay,
voice out there.
okay, Mohammed.
to Virginia's point about the planning committee, she calculated that estimately, based on the stipend and the amount of hours that that the committee members have, or the councillors have participated in that committee. Perhaps that is my question, I guess, to Virginia and maybe the staff is what does the commitment to that committee look like? So I'll just give an example. Right now I'm a teaching assistant. I get paid, let's say, for running a tutorial, theoretically, or a university professor gets paid, a contract professor gets paid for teaching a class for the hours they are in that class. But that's not really comprehensive or taking into account all the other work that they have to do before and after the class, such as creating the lesson plans, drafting the material, creating the presentations, the script, and then afterwards grading all the assignments and whatnot. So creating the assignments, grading assignments. So my question maybe to the staff that may know a little bit more about this committee and as to why they get paid that stipend is what does the before and after homework look like for the counselors who take on that responsibility? Because if it is as simple as they attend the meeting and they're basically getting paid $125 an hour, it's very rich. Let's put it that way. And to be fair, also at the same time, you have opportunity costs. So it's not total. The net is not 125. We know that. But if there is pre-committee homework and then after committee homework that the counselors have to do, that should be considered part of the, so if we were should be considered part of the compensation and to calculate the total compensation. To that end, if there is a significant amount of time, preparation time, and then time after the committee that they need to do as part of the committee work, that should be calculated as well in order to get an actual like equivalent hourly rate, if you want to call it that. So I hope my question is kind of clear. And I'd like to get some insight.
Okay, well, I'll go to
Yeah,
clerk.
through the chair. So just doing some research, the planning stipend is part of the honoraria bylaw that we're discussing right now. So I was able to confirm that. Secondly, in terms of homework, the planning committee is a committee that we need for statutory responsibilities for zoning bylaws. And so members of council would read agendas and make decisions on zoning bylaw amendments and official plan amendments. And those meetings range from 1 hour to 4 to 5, depending on how many applications they have.
What's the total, through the chair, what's the total hourly commitment, would you say, a year for it? So this including preparation time and then time afterwards.
We don't really track that. I think that's why council had a hard time setting that amount. It is a large obligation. There are a lot of meetings. They are statutory meetings. They do have a lot of zoning applications and amendments, but it's hard to track that. And I think council had a hard time defining that. And the 250s, is where they agreed where it should be at. So besides that, I can't really draw.
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify that it's $250 a
yeah.
meeting.
Per meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
per meeting, flat.
Yes.
Okay, I think in the interest of so we can potentially pass A to E and then have a
Well, I'd like
additions.
to make an amendment then, considering this is within the remuneration bylaw.
Okay, and we could separate, can we? I was just trying to think, what can we agree on to make successful and then accept that maybe we can't do that because of other stuff. Okay, so but you have an idea, so before I start.
I always like ideas, Dave, you know that. I'd like to move that as part of, well, it would be,
Are you, yes, you can move, because you can. I'm just thinking Robert's rules here, we've got a mover in a second, so this is on the floor as this, so this would be an amendment. So
Correct.
you'd like to move an amendment?
yes. And I don't know if it would be staff or if it would be council that should review planning committee stipend of $250 per meeting. I don't want to put, but perhaps it's to bring it more in line with the compensation package being recommended for council. To kind of try and make them look at step 3, whatever that hourly rate is. I don't know how you would word it. But I do think $250 is too much. And I would like them to either look at it or we can arbitrarily put something in there. But I don't want it to be adversarial either.
So perhaps, again, given my familiarity with Robert's rules and the context of this discussion, an amendment F that as the compensation bylaw, is that what's the name of the bylaw?
Honorary.
The honorarium bylaw, that council review the honorarium bylaw. Or is there already a practice, I guess, before I do that, is there already a practice to review it at the beginning of each term of council? Okay, so how about this to capture the discussion? So add in a friendly amendment from Virginia, which may need a seconder, that's not me, but with the wording such as this, F, that council review the honorarium bylaw, all sections of the honorarium bylaw at the start of the next term of council.
No, I don't agree with that. I
Okay,
want the planning committee stipend.
just the planning
specifically.
committee.
Well,
Okay.
if it's gonna be reviewed, but I want them to review that as well. I mean, I could sit here and say perhaps it should be $100. But I want.
So what I was trying to capture is that you would like the planning committee bylaw, the planning committee honoraria amount to be reviewed. And I would
Yes.
like the GRCA, the external boards portion of the honorarium bylaw reviewed as well.
I don't think they're the same.
Okay. So.
Planning
what-
committee is a committee of council and the others are outside boards.
Yes. So could we say F, that the planning committee honoraria be reviewed at the start of the next term of council, and the external committees honorarium bylaw be reviewed at the start of the next term of council?
I don't agree that they should be in this. I don't want it in my motion,
Okay.
anything about the external, because I don't know what you want reviewed.
I
Within that.
think my opinion is that those honoraria should not be returned to the city, and they should be kept by the councilors that and the mayor that participate.
Yeah, and I don't think they're germane, the two.
Okay, so we may have 2 amendments potentially. So back to F. So back to the potential amendment from Virginia. So Virginia's amendment would be to add a review of the planning committee honoraria at the start of the next term of council. Does that capture that? Does that capture your intention? Virginia, does that capture your attention?
I guess since we're doing everything effective the new term of council, yes, but I really would like it done now. But
I think that would be a delegation to council as part of.
well, you're our chair.
So
I just think it should be reviewed.
we could, okay, so that could be we could do that as part of. At the presentation when I'm up there, I can say whatever I want, so. Subject to the limitations of the committee, but
So I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Perhaps staff
So
can-
typically, the purpose of the remuneration review, why we do it, and it applies to the next term of council, is that there's not the perception of the current council are increasing their salaries for the current term.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why we're having it now is to set the future rates for future councilors. And so there might be people might be hesitant to do that for the new term of council to set those rates. So that's why
Yeah,
if you request a council to review the planning committee stipend for this term, they could set for the new term. right?
yeah, that's really what I'm
Okay,
Yeah, it needs to be reviewed now by them or,
okay. So, because we still haven't, and Mohammed, over to you.
Um, perhaps this could be a friendly amendment to Virginia's point. I'm trying to make this as efficient as possible. Perhaps the counselors could be paid the same hourly wage, quote unquote, that they would be paid sitting as like regular counselors in their, their 25-hour a week. Would that be a friendly amendment? So like, let's say the meeting runs 30 minutes, they get paid 30 minutes at whatever rate that they were being paid. If it's running at 3 hours because they have a bajillion zoning applications, then it would be paid for 3 hours. Would that be a friendly amendment to you instead of going and sending it there and then probably going to strike another committee? This is going to cause like a bunch of delay. It's going to waste a lot of taxpayer money on governance bureaucracy. Like it's unnecessary. Would that be amenable? Would that be a friendly amendment? They just get paid whatever rate that they get paid for the duration of the meeting?
I will share, response to that question first.
Well, through the chair, they go to the meeting, but they read 100 or 200, 300 page agendas. So that'd be very hard to capture.
Mhm.
Our last committee, the whole meeting that was this week, the agenda was like 500 pages. So it's really, really hard to quantify that. There is a lot of work that leads into the meeting.
I don't disagree.
So perhaps, I think to maybe better capture the Virginia's amendment, that council immediately review the planning committee stipend but immediately review the planning committee
Yeah.
stipend.
to review it based on statistical information, which I took a lot of time to do today. Like, there's just, I know they have long meetings. I understand that. I respect that. I mean, and we could never quantify what they might spend beforehand, right? Reading reports, talking to constituents. You could pile in a bunch of things that they might do for those planning committee hearings because they have beforehand public meetings too and whatnot. Like you'd never capture that. So I think their original intent of that stipend was for the time they were in the meeting that takes them away from their regular job. That's how that was captured, the 250 is my understanding of it. So I don't mind Mohammed's thought behind it, but I also am not sure if I want to say exactly that.
So we're still wordsmithing
Yeah.
what the planning committee review on our area might look like. Immediately review, they immediately review it under, I mean, they have to accept that recommendation.
Mhm.
So assuming it's recommended, if they accept recommendation, potential recommendation F, they would strike a committee to review those terms for the next term of council within the next year or prior to the next election. Correct?
Yeah, so through the chair, they don't need to strike a committee. They could bring a notice of motion and debate it through resolution. And so still don't have a motion on the
No.
floor because there's no seconder, but what I get from the sense of the table is what you're looking for is that the planning committee stipend be reviewed by this current term of council.
Does that capture?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say.
Moved by Virginia, seconded by Brenda. Okay, we've got the motion. Any additional discussion or questions? Okay, I will go. Yes.
I guess my question is, within our report that you're gonna lovely prepare for us, would there be discussion points on why we're making that recommendation? Based on all the nonsense that we've just said now? Like, just, statistically speaking, they've had 19 meetings and it's averaged out to 1 hour and 45 minutes versus, and I know that there was a lot of meetings. I understand the system, obviously, and the meetings did run very, very long.
You just don't want them to think we don't want to pay them.
Yeah, it's just that when you look at, I mean, the last one was 20 minutes, last one was an hour. You know, and I get it, but but when you add it up, the more people that take that stipend, it adds up to the tax bill, right, to the taxpayers. And it's almost like a bonus, but I don't know, they don't seem to think of that right now. Mr.
Yeah,
Clerk,
so
and-
through the chair, if this gets approved today, committee's happy with recommendations, this will go to the committee, the whole meeting. What we typically do in the purpose department for committee advisory reports, we put a cover page on it saying at this time the committee met and decided the following. Within that context, I can put some background information on why that amendment was brought forward.
You understand what I'm saying, though,
Yeah.
right? It's just. And it's the totalness of it, like, maybe there's only 2 or 3 this time, but the next term of council, it could be all 5 of them. So then the costs are even more and more. We all,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm going to call the question amendment F. To add an immediate review of the planning committee honoraria. All those in favor? Any opposed? Are you,
I abstain.
you're abstained, okay,
Through the chair,
Yeah.
you can't abstain from voting. If you abstain, you're deemed to be voting in the negative.
I can't abstain.
No.
I'll support the motion.
okay. Carried in favor, 3-0. Okay, so now back to the body
wait a minute, 3-0, there's 4 of us here.
from the chair.
Yes, but you cannot abstain either.
Oh, yeah. I have to vote. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we haven't carried it yet. I hadn't considered my thoughts on this matter. Sorry, I will also support it.
Just a review, asking them to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I support it because I love the robust discussion. So it's so carried. So F is added into the overall motion. Okay, this is modifying my understanding. So to my particular item, so I would propose an amendment G that the external committees honoraria be reviewed prior to the next term of council. So the language would match the same, but a distinct recommendation from the planning committee, but the external committees, so that to have that reviewed as well, without making a predetermined assumption that it should stay as is or be changed, but that be reviewed as well.
Point of order. Can you make a motion when you're in the chair?
I didn't realize I was allowed to vote, so I'm proposing that if I'm allowed.
I thought
to
you
vote.
knew Robert's Rules of Order.
It depends on which version you're looking at. I haven't been in the chair role where I've been allowed to vote before. Mohammed.
So on up to that point of order, as previous chair of my student union, a chair can bring a motion to the table if nobody on the board has brought a motion of a similar effect. So it's my personal perspective that you should be able to bring a motion to the table as a motioner and then get a seconder. The same thing at the University Board of Governors, the same thing at the University Senate. So I would say pretty safe to say.
Thank you, Mohammed. To the clerk.
Through the chair, Robert's rules states that the chair has all the rights and privileges as any other voting member. So the chair is able to move and second and vote on items. Some prefer not to, just to have impartiality, but it's definitely not prohibited in Robert's rules.
Okay, so we've clarified the Robert's Rules discussion. Very exciting. So I've made a motion. I'm, I guess, looking for a seconder.
I'll second it.
Second by Mohammed. Okay. Discussion. Virginia.
Which boards did you want reviewed?
Explicitly the any any and all external boards that all members of council are appointed to or sit on, where compensation is received. That,
Is that within the honorarium bylaw too? I'm just looking at it now and I'm only showing a police services board honorarium on that one. The hydro one. There's a separate bylaw.
Mr. Chair.
sorry, Mohammed.
I'm of the opinion that we should be explicit in the specific motion to say that the remuneration or the honorariums paid to the councillors and the mayor while attending those external boards shall not be remitted to the city. Based on the previous discussion, is that something you'd be open to?
I would be open to that. So that would change the amount, that would be an amendment to the amendment.
Amendment, yeah, so I'd like to motion or amend the amendment to explicitly say that the remuneration received by the councillors and mayor shall not be required to be remitted to the city. Would you second that motion?
I would second that motion, which I understand that can do. So now.
And now we need to vote on the amendment to the amendment.
Now we're into a situation where we're voting on the amendment to the amendment.
Through the chair, you're the mover, Mohammed's a seconder,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So you could just deem that friendly.
okay.
Okay.
Just a whole other level of whether friendly amendments exist or not. Okay, friendly amendment. So now the motion on the floor is explicitly that it's no longer a review, but the recommendation to council is that honoraria received by members of council for serving on external boards is not to be returned to the city.
No, shall not be required.
Shall not be
So
required to be returned to the city.
Yeah. So they have the option to, but they're not required anymore.
Brenda, and then Virginia.
I'm probably the one least familiar with the way all of this works, but the external boards, are counselors required to sit on them, or can somebody explain to me how that works? Like, are they appointed to them? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so through the chair, they are appointed to them. A lot of these external boards are required under legislation. So the police services board,
Right.
they need to have somebody on there. GRCA, they need to have somebody on there. John Noble Home, they have to have somebody on there. So there's all these external boards are essentially legislated or need representation from Brantford.
Okay, but they actually volunteer to be on, but they put their name forward to be on them. They're not required, they're not ordered to be on them.
Correct. It is a voluntary basis every
Okay.
November.
Okay,
Council makes those appointments to who will sit on which
okay.
external bodies.
And what they're paid for as of now, what they get paid for that, they're required to remit back to this city? Or no? The way it is right now?
The way it is right now, if they're sitting on a board that pays a stipend.
Right.
So they all don't, John Noble Home doesn't.
Okay.
But on my recollection, without digging deep into the budget right now, Police Services Board does, Brandbridge does, GRCA does. They're the ones that are coming off the top of my head right now. So those stipends or honoraria come directly to the city.
Oh,
So they don't go to the counselor and then they remit, they come directly to us.
Okay.
And that's in accordance with the provisions in the current honoraria bylaw
okay,
that prohibits them from collecting.
okay, great, that clarifies it for me better.
Virginia.
I need to know the amounts and for each of the boards that we're talking about. I don't see it within bylaw 81, 2024. Other than it's noted for the police board, so I wouldn't be prepared to vote on anything today. I would also like to know if there's anything within any of the acts that govern these boards, whether it's permitted to happen. Also like to know your thoughts on. Are you looking for a review to increase these? Is that your thought for them?
Well, I guess through me, the amounts will be established by the boards themselves on whatever their fee schedule would be. So police services board would,
No, we don't set them. It's set by the honorarium bylaw. So the
the police
city,
services board is, but the Grand River Council and the Grand River. The Grand
GRCA,
GRCA, and Grand Bridge would set their own compensation for their directors.
okay, so we need to see those bylaws. And that's probably why they're not within our honorarium.
Right.
bylaw.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm not entirely certain if we even have jurisdiction, if Grand Bridge sets the honorarium for
Yeah.
what they want to pay their members, I don't
Yeah,
think that. we
that's why I
can
want to know the
dictate-
act, yeah, that governs each of those boards. It's not something.
So I don't believe there's any act that governs Grand Bridge. They're a private corporation.
But there might be bylaws.
It's gonna be difficult. I doubt it. I'm sure they're. It's not probably something that's publicly.
Yeah.
I guess.
And those bodies have other members from other communities,
Mhm.
right? So GRCA, it's not just City of Brantford.
Yeah, exactly.
Members of
Yeah.
council, so now you're in a situation where you're paying members of Brantford
Yeah.
less or more, and then the others are different.
Truly, our only one that we could control would be the police services board. If control is the proper word, but that's within our honorarium bylaw. The other ones would have be a private corporation, something that's governed by another act that has other members there. That we probably could not dictate.
Definitely could not dictate what another organization.
Yeah.
Comes in members from. Mohammed,
I'd like to call the motion to question.
we've got a called question.
Well, then I'd like to move a deferral, please, to the next meeting to find out further information.
Yeah, so if I can, through the chair, when a motion to call the question gets called, it needs to be voted on right away. If that carries, then the committee has to vote on the question.
Okay.
Good enough.
So it's called the question. So the question is, will we vote on adding amendment G to the existing list of items? So I call the question. All those in favor? Got 1 and 2. All those opposed? 2. So it fails. Okay. So we're now back to G. Got some
We don't have a
questions.
G, do we?
We're discussing, we have G on the floor. F was the planning. And then G is the external committees. One that we're
What should we
discussing.
just call the question on?
To vote on
G.
G.
Through the chair, just to clarify, we voted on whether or not the committee wanted to call the question on G. So the committee voted against voting on G right away, so that didn't carry. G is still on the floor.
So G's still on the floor. Next steps. So Mohammed, your hand is still up.
I didn't realize that my hand is up.
So we have G sort of sitting there, G for Grand Bridge and police services. Do we have next, what's next here? That was to vote on it, but we've got, or is discussion over? So
Nope, so right now it's on the floor.
On the floor,
So if anybody has any other questions about the motion or debate on the motion, this is where they do it.
questions to debate on G. Virginia,
I cannot support the motion for the fact that it's a private company, it's a entity that has other board members that it just wouldn't be right to look at them. The only one that we might have any police control over is the Police Services Board, and that would also, I assume, would affect other members, because you're just talking about 2 members out of 5, because you'd have to, you potentially, you don't want to, you know, cost them all different amounts either. Just not supportive of it, unfortunately.
no discussion, Brenda. Mohammed,
So to that point, they're not being paid differently. The basic difference right now is that they're having to go and do this work, but that money is going straight to the city. And they're not being compensated for that time. I don't think that's right. They're not indentured servants. Counselors are people and employees, just like everybody else. They deserve to be paid for their time.
I think I'm going to call to question, because I think we've exhausted solution on the matter. All those in favor? On G, on adding G to the list of A to F. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. Okay, and we're back to A to F now. Any additional discussion on items 4.1 A to F? Going once. Going twice. So Brenda,
Through the chair, just gonna throw this out there, the mayor's remuneration. Is there any possibility of basing that on the level of experience that the mayor, whoever it may be, brings to the job? And I say that our current mayor has a great resume, has a ton of experience. But what if the next mayor doesn't have that kind of experience, doesn't have, why should they be paid the same as somebody who's got a great resume?
I'll
Am I
propose you're
explaining
messing with
this
democracy, but I'll throw it out there to staff.
Through the chair, it's the people's choice. So the general public determines whether or not that candidate has the experience and they vote for
Okay,
that
fair enough.
particular individual.
Fair enough.
Mohammed,
I was gonna make the exact same point. That you know, it's not like a professional position where you get it. It's not like being a public servant where it's on merit. Being elected is a very different, whole different ball game. You could be the most incompetent person in the world and be voted president, or you could be the most competent person in the world and be voted president, and your compensation doesn't change.
most incompetent person in the world did get elected president. So, all right.
But
Yes. Okay, back to 4.1, 8F. Additional comments or questions?
Can you read out F again? Oh, I'm sorry, A to F, you said.
A to F, A through F, yes.
and the other 2.
Wait,
Oh,
So
no.
we've got 4.1, A sub paragraphs A, B, C, D, E, and the F one regarding the planning committee honoraria that we just added. And we're gonna bring them all together and call the question.
Do you want me to show them on the screen?
Do you need to see F?
no, I understand.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it is carried. Very good. Thank you. That was a exciting discussion. I've learned some new things on Robert's rules, which guess as the clerk of the board that I report to, that's good. So thank you, everybody. Can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of September the 19th? So moved by Brenda and seconded by Virginia. And a question of clarification to the clerk. For somebody who is not at the meeting, are they able to move or second the minutes?
Yes.
They are, okay. It's a sub-learning opportunity for expertise of Robert's rule. Okay, all those in favor of the minutes? Carried, thank you. There are no resolutions for today's meeting. We have no notices of motion. And my understanding is at the conclusion of today's meeting, our work is, as a committee, is complete. Barring a presentation or potential presentation to council in support of the recommendations at either committee, the whole, or council. Okay,
Did you say December it's going?
separate. Okay.
So our work as a committee is done.
Yes, the committee has wrapped. Yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to
Cool.
thank everybody. We'll have a party at Hudson Public in about 4 minutes, and wings and beer on the city of Brantford. All right. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
good night, everyone.
Thank you.